One, two, three, funky.
Welcome to the Funk Basement. We got Stelvio, we got DJ Hustle in the house. Here to discuss defund the police and the police reform. What's going on, Coach? What's happening?
What's up, my brother? I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. Like this explosive environment going on right now. This is a good time to discuss a lot of the things that's happening in real time now. But one of the things that we're going to discuss is defunding the police.
Yes.
Give me a description of what that actually means. Tell the audience exactly what you know about that term, defund the police.
Well, when you hear that term, it sounds radical, right? You know, defund the police, and what some people believe it means, and really a large population of white Americans believe that defund the police is get rid of the police department, right? You know, just get rid of the police department. We don't need them. Defund them. You know, and that's not what that means. You know, what defund the police means is take some of those monies that we're putting into our police departments and move those monies into other areas to help our communities and to help our cities. You know, Los Angeles Police Department, they have a budget in 2020 of $1.7 billion. That's what it be, 1.7 billion. Okay, that's a lot of money to give to one department of a city, right? And so you say to yourself, if you're giving this department 1.7 billion, after you get by salaries and you get through with health insurance and retirement, okay, well then, what are you doing now? You know, are you buying guns every year for all your police, you know, your officers? You know, are you buying used military equipment, you know, for your police officers? So again, you know, those monies can be moved in a direction to help other things that can avoid an interaction with the police, right? So imagine if you took that 1.7 billion and you cut that down to, let's just say 900 million, right? And then you took those monies and you put those back into the education system. You put those back into healthcare. You put those into, you know, attacking the homeless problem in this country, and especially in Los Angeles. Imagine what you can do to avoid getting into a situation where the police are always the answer. In every I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, doesn't that particular budget, doesn't that depend on the city themselves? Because there are cities that may need more police presence than others, or is that just complementary of the area and the population?
Well, I mean, I can't give you all the metrics to each city and how large their force is. But what I do know is, and again, I just say we take LA because, you know, I know the numbers. There's no way you're telling me $1.7 billion is getting rid of crime in LA. I don't believe LA has the lowest crime rate in the country. You know, I believe they still have an issue with crime. I believe they have an issue with drugs and gang violence. They still have these issues. So then what is that doing, right? You and I are both working Americans, right? If we're making top salary at our jobs and we're not doing our job, do we keep the job? Do they keep paying us? No.
Absolutely not.
No, you get fired, right? So to me, if the police aren't fixing the problem, why are we giving them all the money? To me, let's get it to a place to fix the problem, to really work on fixing these problems. To me, what you're doing is you're simply keeping the problem going, which keeps you having to give the police money, right? You know, and again, defund does not mean get rid of, but it means be smarter in how we're spending our money, be smarter in how these things are happening. You know, George Floyd was, his encounter with the police came because when he was at the store, he had what the clerk said was a counterfeit 20. Okay, so he tried to give the clerk the 20. Clerk said it was counterfeit. The clerk called 911. Now, the first thing you ask yourself is, does presenting a counterfeit bill require a 911 call? Right? We have to ask ourselves as Americans, is that what we want our law enforcement doing? We want them answering 911 calls because someone has presented a counterfeit bill? Or could there maybe have been another, level of this where you present it and then they simply tell the clerk, okay, hold on to the bill, let the customer know that unfortunately you can't give the bill back to them, and ask them to leave the premises if they can't present other payment. Bam, you're done. George Floyd has no interaction with the police. He goes home to be with his daughter, and life moves on. Instead, the police are called. They get in this interaction with him. Next thing you know, the man has died over a counterfeit 20.
And you do wonder what places like, banking institutions, grocery stores, places where you shop for clothes and stuff like that. Exactly what is the protocol? Because, as we go to all these places, they're checking these, bills constantly, the $20 bills, the $100 bills. They're checking them, by go ahead and putting a highlighter there. They're looking at them to make sure they meet certain requirements, and you wonder exactly what the protocol is. And the protocol that you just mentioned sounds more reasonable than calling the police and asking them to come and take care of that situation.
Well, I'll tell you the protocol. I used to work for 2 major banks, and I've had a situation where I unknowingly had a counterfeit 20 that I tried to use. Right. So the first I'll give you from working in a bank. At a bank, if a customer comes in and make a deposit, right, you're supposed to use that pin, the counterfeit pin, on all the bills, right? When I worked in the bank, we had the counterfeit pin. I think now they actually have an infrared device that actually finds the security marks. And there's a machine that you run it through that counts the bills, but also it indicates what's real and what's not real. If a counterfeit bill is in that deposit, okay, procedure is I notify you. So I say, Mr. Stelvio, it seems like this 20 is counterfeit, right? I show it to you. And then I'm supposed to keep it, let you know that unfortunately I can't give this back to you. And then that counterfeit bill is sent to the Secret Service. The Secret Service is who handles counterfeiting in this country. That's the law enforcement entity that handles that. They investigate it. They that's who handles it. It's not our local police department, the Secret Service. So the bank sends the counterfeit to the Secret Service. There's an envelope. You fill it out. What account it came from. Blah blah blah. You send it off. Okay. And so what they're doing is they're looking to see a trend, right? They're looking to see, okay, does this customer make a lot of deposits? Do they deal in a lot of cash, right? They look for trends, right? It could be that you went to Target and got change and went to go put it back in your account, and that change had a counterfeit in it. You had no idea, right? But that's what they do, okay? So at a bank, where the banks are not allowed to give you back the money, okay? Now, at a grocery store or at your regular vendor, it's by choice. And I'll give you the example. So as you know, I DJ. So I was DJing one night. I was killing it. I'm just going to toot my own horn. DJ Hustle was in a zone. And so I have a tip jar. So people are dropping tips in. Usually tips go from $1 to maybe $5, right? So, this dude was up there. I was killing it. He was dancing, drinking, loving it. So he drops in a $20 tip, right? So all my DJ brothers out there know when you get a $20 tip, you're like, oh, this is nice, right? So feel good about the night. I probably made, with that 20, I probably took about $30 in tips, right? I go home, get up the next morning. The next morning I have a coaching clinic, right? Because I coach. I have a coaching clinic to go to that next morning. So I go get my boy. We're heading to the clinic. I'm like, yo, man, are you hungry? You want breakfast? He's like, yeah. I said, I got you, man. I got a $20 tip last night. Boom, we go in the Jack in the Box to get some breakfast. We go to Jack in the Box, right? I'm like, get what you want, right? He orders, I order. Lady's like, blah, 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 blah. Okay, $12. I'm like, here you go, right? I'm feeling good, a $20 tip, right? She kind of looks at it, pauses. She kind of walks to the back, comes back up, hands me back the 20, and was like, I'm sorry, sir, this isn't real. And I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, what? She said, yes, I'm sorry, it's not real. Right? So I'm looking at him like, oh my God. So I'm like, I'm so sorry. I reach in my pocket. I grab, enough money to pay for it. I'm embarrassed. I am literally embarrassed because I look like I tried to pass off a fake 20, right? I had no idea. When I look at it and I really deep and I could tell it was fake, it was really oily. And
so police didn't come in and block you off from the drive-through?
No, they did not. She gave it back to me. I paid with regular cash. I apologized, and then I laughed with my boy about it. Like, dang, man, dude gypped me with this fake 20, right? And we moved on with our life. Now, what if she would have called the police? What if she would have called the police and the police would have came up and confronted me? Who knows what would have happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that all being said is there are policies and procedures in place. But again, when you're giving so much money to the police department, they're going to police. That's what they're going to do. If you give them all that money, they're going to police. And they're going to police everything. Things that don't require heavy hands, they're going to present heavy hands because that's what you're giving them money to do.
But see, that's a good point that you made earlier. And I want to just go back to something you said earlier about, defunding and the allocation of resources. Instead of a lot of it going to the police, go to other areas to help prevent a lot of the crime that is occurring. So one of the places where a lot of funds could go to could be education, fair education for all groups of people, not just, having a lot of funds go to the haves and less funds going to the have-nots. I mean, I think that we could eliminate some of that. And I think that is a really good point about just allocating resources to places where people can flourish and not so much policing. So I think that's a really good point. That's a really good point and a really good explanation of what that actually means. So that people don't have the right idea or the wrong idea, of what that actually means.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, what I would tell, any viewer of our podcast is in whatever city you live in, drive through a predominantly white neighborhood, or a middle-class neighborhood, right, that has a Target, maybe a Crate and Barrel, right, that has some of these stores that you'll find in middle-class neighborhoods, and then drive through a low economic neighborhood that doesn't have these things, right? The one thing you'll see different is you'll see the amount of trash and garbage on the street of the low economic neighborhood versus on the street of the middle-class neighborhood, right? And so you ask yourself, well, my God, and I've heard people say, my God, these people, they don't clean up after themselves. They don't pick their trash up. No, it's not that they want to live in filth. It's the resources aren't there to have the city come and clean up like they do in these higher tax brackets where the city sends out workers and they drive up and down these streets and they pick up trash, right? So again, these are little things where if we change those things, you could avoid these instances where people are coming in contact, and in this case, Black men coming in contact with the police, and it's ending in us losing our lives.
That's the Funk Basement. You got the coach bringing the knowledge. Peace.
Peace.